We are live. Whoops. All right, hey, Shawn Lucas here, head trader at the Apiary Fund. Just want to let you know we're going to be talking a little. Oh, hold on. You know what? We don't have audio working very good. Let's do these. Let's put these in. Do an audio check. Make sure the audio is working. Microphone on. Is that audio a little better? Hopefully. Can you just do a I don't know, like or something if the audio is working a little better. I don't know. Can you hear me okay? Does it seem to be working all right? All right. Feedback if you can't hear me. So Shawn Lucas here, head trader at the Apiary Fund. Want to talk to you today about fear. We're sitting here at a cemetery here in the beautiful state of Utah. It's autumn. The trees are turning yellow, and it's a beautiful day. It's supposed to get up to 75 degrees today. We're going to talk a little bit about fear today and some of the challenges that we have as traders, with fear and how it kind of stymies our success in the market. But today is also the anniversary, the 30th anniversary of the Black Monday. I know it's a Thursday, but it's the 30th anniversary of Black Monday. This is a day when the stock market, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, crashed 508 points. I know that's a lot, right? I mean, we're talking. It was 20. Was it a 22%? 22%, or no, it was a 5% drop in the Dow at the time. Make sure my facts and figures are correct here. I think it was about a 20. Make sure I get my facts right. 22% drop. Yeah, 22% drop in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Back on October 19th in 1987. 1987. I'm a little off this morning. Just to put that into perspective, if we did that in today's, if we looked at a 22 or it could be a 22% drop. Somebody look that up. I think it was 508 points. Yeah, it had to be 22%. That just sounds astronomical. 22% drop in today's market would be like 5,000 point drop. That's huge. Anyway, today's the anniversary. Just a little bit of background on that event, Black Monday. It actually started earlier. It started, I think, on the 14th. A few days earlier, we had a 95 point drop in the Dow. And which was a huge move, one of the biggest drops in the Dow up until that point. And then things just kind of escalated from there. I mean, the next day you had Iran come in and attack an oil cargo ship, a U.S. oil cargo ship. That doesn't sit well with the markets. The next day after that, so we're talking the 14th, the 15th, Iran attracts the ship. The 16th, there was this huge storm that hit London, and it was so big it shut the market down in London. So you've got oil tanker hit, you've got London market close, and then comes the weekend, right? And there was all kinds of talk on the news wires. There was financial guys coming out and saying, hey, we're really worried about the market right now, and all of that kind of culminated on the opening on Monday morning. I think things started to deteriorate in Hong Kong, New Zealand. Those markets crashed overnight. Crashed in, when the London market opened back up after being closed, it crashed in the London market the next day. Then that followed through into the U.S. market, and it was just a horrible bloodbath after that. Largest drop, one of the largest drops in U.S. history. What's interesting is today is the 30th anniversary of that, and last night we had a crash in the Hong Kong market, sort of the little specter of the specter of the Black Monday events last night. I think Hong Kong had a crash last night, and that kind of followed through London. Our markets got hit this morning, but fortunately they're kind of rebounding this morning. So we thought it might be a little fun to come out and do a Facebook Live here at the cemetery. You know, it is Halloween. You know, Halloween's in a week and a half, and you know, I remember as a kid, you know, the cemeteries being the scary place. You didn't ever want to go to the cemetery. You know, ghosts are there, and anyway, it was. So we thought we'd do a Facebook Live here and talk about fear in the market. You know, fear is something we all face, and it's something that, you know, we have to learn to manage fear in our trading. Otherwise, fear causes some serious problems. It's the one, there's two emotions that cause traders a lot of fits. Fear is one, and then greed is the other one, and we'll talk about that in another section, another Facebook Live, if you will. But fear, I want to kind of start out, you know, share a story. I remember when I first got into trading. You know, I'm in college. I've just landed a job with Charles Schwab, and I was on cloud nine. You know, I had a little bit of extra money now. I wasn't a poor college kid. I had a little bit of extra money, and so I start putting it in the market, and it just seems like I'm doing well, and then I think things just kind of crashed in on me. And you know, I was asking guys around the office, you know, how do you manage that? I mean, it seems like I can make 5 right choices in a row, and then all of a sudden it just compounds. Everything just goes against me, and I end up losing everything that I made, and maybe even a little bit more. And you know, they kept saying, oh, you got to get rid of your emotions. You've got to get the emotions out of your trading. You can't trade well if you've got emotions. And I remember, like, really struggling with this concept, you know, because I guess I was an emotional person, and I remember if I take a loss, you know, it no matter what I do, you know, that fear, I just get gripped by that fear. And you know, and I'm sitting there trying not to have it, and all these guys on one hand are saying, don't have emotions, and then in the other side of it, I am just flooded with these emotions of fear in the market. And I struggled with that. You know, I try as hard as I could. I just could not get that fear out of my trading. You know, I try, and I think I got good at masking the fear, you know, instead of sweating bullets and pounding desk or whatever. I wasn't doing that. So I was masking the fear, but it was still there, and it was still just a huge part of my trading when things would go wrong in the market. So, you know, I struggled with that for, you know, year or 2 years, and I remember going into an office of a friend who was good. I mean, he was, you know, everybody has that guy that helped them out, you know, in life, and this guy really helped me a lot in my trading. I really valued his opinion, and you know, we were at lunch one day, and I was like, look, I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm not cut out for trading, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I have this fear, and then it just seems like I can't make a right choice. When I get that way, everything just goes wrong. And he's like, well, and I was like, I try as hard as I can. I try to get rid of this fear, but it's just a part of me. And I'll never forget what he told me. He's like, look, Shawn, you're human, right? I was like, yeah, I'm human. Got red blood, not blue, not green. It's like, yeah, I'm human, very human. And he's like, well, you know, humans have emotions. And I know everybody says you got to get rid of your emotions, but that's not really what you're doing when you're trading. You're not getting rid of, to take the emotions out of you would literally take the humanity out of you. You wouldn't be human, you'd be robot, right? And he's like, we have robots that trade, but you were blessed with this, you know, this emotion, you know, and he's like, what you have to do is you have to learn how to use it and learn how to live with it in your trading. And that really made a lot of sense to me. I you know, it's not like things turned around overnight, but you know, just that shift in my thinking from this idea that I had to get rid of emotions, I had to completely remove them from my trading, to now this idea that, oh, I can be a successful, even though I have fear in the market. I just have to learn how to manage that fear in the right way. And what I was doing when I would experience fear is I would have these response paths that were self-defeating. You know, they were like, I would do all the wrong things. Whenever that fear would trigger, I would do all the wrong things and end up, you know, it would almost become this self-fulfilling function where, you know, feel the fear, make the mistake, walk away at the end of the day in a losing position. And so instead of trying to get rid of the fear, what I started doing is started learning how to, number one, recognize when the fear was there. Once I recognized the fear, then, you know, then I had an opportunity to reflect, or to experiment with different ideas on how to cope and how to manage that fear, how to make better decisions, you know. And I think that was the key to that's what changed things really in my emotional side of trading anyway. I remember, you know, back in mid 2000s, 2004, 2005, really kind of, you know, I was asked to do a lot of sitting down with traders and helping them through challenges that they had, you know, helping a person get from, you know, get through hurdles. And I remember thinking, you know, a lot of these guys, it's not the system that they're trading, it's not the decisions that they're making in the market. When it really boils down to it, these guys had patterns and habits in the market that were self-defeating. And so oftentimes as I'd sit down with a trader and start to watch how they trade, how they would respond to the market, you know, we could identify some really strong, you know, patterns that were causing them problems in their trading. And so I started this study about psychology and trading, and you know, there's not a lot of literature on psychology and trading in the world, and so, you know, I kind of had to look outside of the trading world to find information and material on how to manage, you know, emotion psychology in trading. And 2006, I believe, I sat down, I started working with a professor of psychology, and, you know, I was like, you know, number one, when I sit down with a trader, you know, there's something about different people and how they respond to different events. And he's like, oh yeah, you know, there's these different, you know, we're all different. Every human in the world is different, and you can't pinpoint, you know, exactly what makes a person unique. But he's like, you know, people fall into these common behavioral patterns. And so that's what kind of started the whole idea of the investor profile. And we spent a couple years, you know, diving into different trading personalities and trying to identify, you know, what kind of a trader a person is. As part of that, we recognize that, you know, there's two primary response paths that people have aversions to that cause some real problems. Number one is risk. You know, some people are just not risk takers, and then the other side of the equation is some people just get scared. You know, their life is dictated by fear. And so we started taking those investor profiles, and we started identifying the different profiles, how the different profiles, aggressive, intuitive, analytical, and methodical, how these different styles of traders would respond to fear and risk. And what I learned through this process, you know, sitting down with traders and working with this professor of psychology, is that you know, I was thinking aggressive. Let's just take aggressive trader, for example. I was thinking an aggressive trader is just like fearless, you know. I'm thinking, these guys, they're not scared of anything. You know, these are the guys that run into the room and they're like, give me fear. I will take it I will master it. I'll be the conqueror of fear. And one of the biggest enlightenments that I experienced at that time is that, hey, anyway, you got someone who's aggressive, you know, in the market, and it doesn't take you very long of sitting down with a trader to know if they're an aggressive trader. But what I noticed is that these guys were chickens, like literally chickens. I would never have thought it, but yeah, these guys run quick. You know, they are chickens. And so it was really surprising to me because, you know, fear really influenced a group of traders in a way that I had really not expected. But they come in, they want to be right, and when they're not right, man, fear grips them, and they start to path off, or to kind of go down these different paths of responses to fear that were self hurting. They hurt themselves through that process. So anyway, started looking at these different response paths, and really there's, you know, to fear, and really there's really there's a lot of response paths. That how we respond to fear is unlimited. But if you start to categorize things and kind of pick the biggest response paths, you know, there's really just a few. Most people respond in a common way. There's the people who fight, right? They sit down and they just fight their way through fear. They're, you know, that's, if I'm going down, I'm going to take you down with me, fear, and they just fight through it. And that's the fight mechanism, the fight response path. And then there's flight, of course, right? These two, everybody knows, you know, this is nothing new. There's this flight response path where they're like, let me out of here, I'm out of here. Scooby-Doo, right? Sees the ghost, runs away. Scooby-Doo, I love Scooby-Doo. Anyway, that's the flight response path, and then there's a couple others. There's a freeze mechanism where this is the deer. You know, the deer comes out in front of the car, knows danger, and it just stops and it doesn't move. You know, a lot of people will respond with a freeze, where they just don't do anything. They don't know whether to close out their trades or to keep going, or they're just sitting there looking at it, and meanwhile the carnage is just coming at them. And that's not a really great flight path. But there's one path, response path, that is really good for traders. And this is something I discovered, and something you want to write down as you're working through this process of developing trading skills. And that is, some people respond to fear by becoming focused. And in reality, out of all of the different responses that you could have to fear, the focus response is possibly one of the best responses in trading. Now, you can't always dictate your response to fear. Sometimes it's just completely, you know, response driven or reflex driven. But there's some, you know, there are some points in your response path where you can pause. And what I've taught myself to do is when I start to, I'm a fighter. That's, you know, that's my response path, my natural response path in the market. Now, in life, I'm not a fighter, but in the market, man, if I start losing and I start fearing the market, I'm in there. I'm trading, and I'll keep trading, and I'll keep getting in more and more and more, and I'll trade all day long and all night long and all day the next day, and until I can beat the market. That's how I respond, and that's not good. I mean, my wife will be the first to tell you that, you know, when Shawn is having this response path, it's just, you know, it's not good. So anyway, that's my response path. But what I've learned to do is recognize when I'm having that instinctual response to an event in the market. And then I can identify points where I can just focus, right? I can take that fear and I can just focus and refocus on things that I might not be seeing. So one of the first things that I'll do is I'll say, what am I not seeing in the market? And now, by asking myself that question, I've taken myself out of this place another trade, place another trade, place another trade, place another trade response path, and now I'm back into a focus. I missed something in the market. I missed it. I don't know what it was, but let me focus on the market and see if I can find it. And so by focusing, a lot of that adrenaline, a lot of that fear starts to kind of go away, because now I recognize that it's not something, it's not a fear that's going to kill me in the market, but it's something that I'm missing something. And my job at that point is to figure out what I missed. And that takes me out of that fight response path. Every trader, you know, every person is going to have to, before I go there, and you'll see it, you can see it when I trade, by the way. You know, Nate will often tell you, Shawn's taking some heat when he gets quiet. You know, he doesn't throw a fit, he doesn't, you know, get mad and display fear or anger in the market. He just gets focused, highly focused. Like the entire world can be crashing down around him, but he is hyper focused in the market. And that's a way that I've taken myself out of that response loop. So each of us are going to need to find a different way to respond to that fear in the market, and you'll have to experiment with different ideas and techniques to do that. But I think the first step is to learn to recognize what when you're experiencing fear. And fear is, you know, it's not that you're sitting there and you're getting cold chills and sweating and you want to run away, and that's not necessarily the type of fear that that's not always how it manifests itself in trading. Sometimes it's different, and you have to learn to recognize when you're experiencing fear, what is triggering that fear. Once you've identified what is triggering that fear, then you need to focus on different response paths. Okay, you want to get yourself out of the freeze mode where you just sit there and watch the carnage. So freezers, you know, if you're one of those freeze to fear people, one of the first things you'll want to do is just close the trade, right? Doesn't matter if you're in a loss or a win or anything like that. If you're focusing, if you're a freezer and that fear is gripping you, then there's a lot of damage that can happen when you're frozen in the market. I mean, the things can go from bad to worse fairly quickly. So just closing out the trade might be a response mechanism that allows you then to go back in and focus and see what you're missing in the market. The runaway guys, you know, these guys don't have any problem closing out a trade. In fact, they're closing out a trade long before the trade ever fully matures. And we see that all the time at Apiary. You know, these trades closed out of fear way too early, or or whatever it is. And so there's going to be through that process, maybe you have to go through this I don't understand the flee mechanism, but maybe something you need to do is just go back to a simulation account and then just say, okay, normally I would run here, I would get out of this situation right now, and then you take, okay, I'm going to take 3 more minutes in this trade, or 5 more minutes in this trade, and I'm just going to see how things work out. And oftentimes what you'll discover is you enter the market here, it's going against you. Normally you'd close the trade and run and get out of there. By allowing that market 5 more minutes in simulation, not in real life, but in simulation, then you start to see that thing go like that, or if you're short, and then you start making money. But but by saying, okay, I'm going to now, I recognize that now I would flee, I would get out of these trades. I'm just going to leave it on and see how things mature over the next period of time. And now you can focus, you get yourself out of the fear cycle, and you can actually focus in on learning what it is that you need to learn. So anyway, those are just some ideas. I mean, every one of us will have, different, like I said, every one of us are different. Each person is unique, and it's not that we have to get rid of our emotions when we're trading, but we do need to figure out, what is triggering that fear emotion in us. What's triggering it at? What is our default response path? Once we identify what that default response path is, then we need to experiment with different responses to kind of take us out of the fear, or out of the fight, out of the flight, out of the freeze, and into focus. So our job as traders, let's learn how to get rid of fight, flight, and freeze and get into focus. And sometimes that's closing the trade, sometimes that's running, sometimes that's not trading. Whatever it is, we need to learn how to get into a position of focus. Once we're focused, then it's not difficult at all to get back into the swing of things. Once you're in a state of focus, it's not hard to get back in, to just have fear leave completely and stop influencing you. Anyway, I think that's all I have for now. So good to be with you. Like always, we enjoy these Facebook Lives. I hope that this on this Halloween season, on this anniversary of Black Friday, I hope that this little discussion, or Black Monday, Black Friday, Black Monday, I hope this little discussion on fear sticks with you. And I hope that you're able to reflect back on it and be able to make some of those shifts out of your default, your go-to response path, whether it's fight, flight, or freeze, that you're able to get out of that and get into a state of focus in the market. That, if you're able to do that, I think you'll find great success in the market. We will see you again. Oh, if you have comments, jump in there. Even if you're watching the recording, type your comments in. In fact, I'd love to see what your default response path is. I'd love to see, just type it in the chat or in their comments field. Even after the Facebook Live, we'll come in there and, I'd love to open up a discussion on ways and ideas right here in this thread that we can have different responses or get out of that fight, flight, freeze and into the focus. So with that, happy trading, everybody. We'll see you next Thursday, same time. Thank you.